Jalāl Muḥammad Rūmī was a 13th century Persian poet, Islamic scholar and mystic who believed that rather than constantly fighting reality, we should accept life exactly as it is and learn how to flow with it. His ideas form a core pillar of Sufism. Sufism is a philosophy that focuses on the inward search for truth and the complete surrender of the ego to a higher, benevolent intelligence. Rumi shared these ideas through his poetry, especially in the Masnavi, his 6-volume collection of spiritual poems. Through these writings, he explored the ego, self-discovery, and how to just let life flow. So in this video, we're going to explore how we can all enjoy the flow of our own lives from the philosophy of Rumi. Number 1. Let go of the false ego. Sufi philosophy splits your identity into 2 parts that are constantly fighting for control. First is the nafs, your lower self or false ego. It's driven by fear, status, and the need for validation. It believes it's you against the world. Because the ego feels separate, it obsesses over control. The ego wants to build a dam across the river and resist the flow of life because it believes control is the only way to stay safe and successful. But on the other side, you have the ruh, which is translated as the spirit, and the qalb, which means the heart. Together, they form your higher, true self. This part of you is already connected to the universe. It doesn't need to control the river because it knows that it's already a part of the water. The problem is that almost all of us live entirely in our false ego. In 1244, a wandering mystic named Shams Tabrizi, or Shams Tabrizi, arrived in Konya. He spent years travelling across the Middle East in search of someone who shared his deep spiritual outlook. The religious scholars he met were too rigid to handle his spiritual views. He prayed to find a true equal, someone willing to drop their ego and face reality unfiltered. According to tradition, Shams had a vision which guided him to Konya to find Rumi. At the time, Rumi was 37 years old, wealthy and a highly respected Islamic judge with thousands of followers. His life was built around his status and his massive intellect. He had everything under control. When Shams finally met him, he saw beyond Rumi's public image and he recognized the spiritual equal he'd been looking for. But before they could connect, Shams had to shatter the massive wall of ego Rumi had built around himself. A famous story describes their first meeting. Rumi was sitting beside a fountain with a large collection of handwritten books. Shams, dressed in simple, worn clothes, approached him and pointed to the books, asking what they were. Rumi dismissed the question, replying that they contained knowledge the stranger wouldn't understand. Without hesitation, Shams picked up the books and threw them into the fountain. Rumi was horrified. Those books represented years of study, his reputation, and much of his identity. But when Shams pulled them back out, the pages were completely dry. Astonished, Rumi asked how it was possible. Shams simply replied, "This is knowledge that you cannot understand." Whether the story's actually historical, apocryphal, or just symbolic, its message is the same. Shams showed Rumi that he'd become too attached to his knowledge, status, and reputation. These had become a part of his ego and were preventing him from seeking a deeper truth. After their first meeting, Rumi and Shams spent months together in deep spiritual conversations, a practice known in Sufism as sobet. Rumi gradually became less attached to his wealth, reputation, and position as a respected scholar and turned his attention inward. Through this journey, he embraced the Sufi practice of fana, or the discussion of the ego. By letting go of the identity he'd built around status and recognition, he was able to connect deeply with himself and with life. Today, we have rigid identities around our job titles, bank accounts, and how smart we look in meetings. We micromanage just to stay in control. And according to Sufism, this is the ego trying to stay in charge. So to let life flow, the first step is recognizing when the ego is reacting. Sufism teaches that the anxiety you feel when things go wrong isn't actually you suffering. It's just your ego panicking because it's lost the steering wheel. For example, imagine you're passed over for a promotion you were expecting. Your immediate reaction might be, I failed, or I'm not good enough. Instead of accepting those thoughts, pause and recognize that they're often the ego reacting to a loss of status, not a reflection of your true worth. So the next time your plans fall apart, remind yourself that your true self is completely fine. It's just your ego throwing a tantrum because it's no longer in control. Number 2, trust the divine. In Sufism, there's a concept called tawakkul, which translates to radical, active trust in God. It's the realization that the universe is governed by a higher, deeply intelligent and benevolent force. Practicing tawakkul means doing your best, accepting what you can't control, and trusting that life can still move in the right direction even if you can't see the destination from your limited perspective. There's a famous foundational story in Islamic and Sufi tradition in which a man once left his camel untied, saying he was placing his trust in God. When the Prophet Muhammad heard this, he replied, "Tie your camel, then trust in God." This shows that tawakkul isn't passive resignation. It requires you to do your part in the physical world, but completely surrender the mental burden of the final outcome. And this principle is just as relevant today. Prepare well for an exam, work hard at your job, give your best in an interview. Once you've done everything you reasonably can, let go of the need to control the result. Worrying after the work is done won't change the outcome. Tawakkul also means accepting reality instead of arguing with it. When a project fails, a flight is cancelled, or an unexpected expense hits, we spend hours mentally arguing with the situation, complaining how unfair it is. But practicing tawakkul means immediately accepting the new reality. You look at the situation and say, okay, this is where the current has taken me, so what's my next move? Finally, learn to trust life's detours. A missed opportunity, an unexpected delay or change of plans may later reveal a better path. You might not understand the reason immediately, but tawakkul encourages you to accept that your perspective is limited. Letting life flow means understanding that a delay or a sudden change in plans isn't a bad thing. It's simply trusting the water to take you where you actually need to be. Number 3, chase the essence, not the form. If you read Rumi's Masnavi, you'll run into 2 specific words, surat and mana. Surat means the external form, the outer appearance or the physical shape of a thing. Mana means the essence, the inner truth, or the real meaning behind it. Rumi argued that we get stuck in life because we obsess over the form and completely ignore the essence. To explain this, Rumi used a simple analogy of the cup and the water. Imagine you're wandering through a desert, dying of thirst. The only thing you need to survive is water. That is the essence. But you've convinced yourself that you will only drink out of a golden goblet. That is the form. If someone offers you water in a battered wooden bowl, you reject it. You choose to stay thirsty just because you're attached to its appearance rather than its purpose. We make the same mistake in everyday life. Imagine you've built a business or a content platform around one successful format. Over time, trends change and your audience's interests evolve. If you're attached to that one format, you'll keep forcing it to work even when it's no longer effective. But if your real purpose is to educate, inspire, or entertain people, you can adapt. The format may change, from articles to videos, or from podcasts to short-form content, but the value you provide remains the same. The same idea applies to relationships. Many people create a checklist of what their perfect partner would look like, what job they should have, or what lifestyle they should live. In doing so, they often overlook people who offer the qualities that matter most, such as kindness, trust, and shared values. Rumi's lesson is to stay committed to the essence of what you want, while remaining flexible about the form it takes. Often, the opportunity you need arrives in a form you never expected. Number 4, become the child of the moment. In Sufism, there's a very famous proverb which goes, and please excuse my pronunciation here, as Sufi ibn al-Waqt, that translates to, the Sufi is the child of the present moment. You can only live in the exact situation you're currently in. If you're stressing over a mistake you made months ago, you're just weighing yourself down. If you're obsessing over a problem that might happen years from now, you're trying to solve issues that haven't even arrived. Either way, you stop experiencing the actual life right in front of you right now. Rumi said that the past and the future are veils that completely blind us from reality. The nafs, or the false ego, uses the past to generate guilt, regret and nostalgia, and it uses the future to generate anxiety, panic and rigid expectations. This is easy to see in everyday life. We sit at dinner with our family, but our brains are already drafting Monday's emails. We go for a walk to relax, but spend the whole time replaying a frustrating conversation from 3 weeks ago. So Rumi's advice is simple. Bring your attention back to the moment you're currently living in. Start by letting go of the past. Whatever mistakes you made, yesterday's gone. Once something's happened, carrying it with you every day only adds unnecessary suffering. Then you've got to stop trying to solve future problems that don't yet exist. If you have an important presentation next week, yes, prepare for it when the time comes, but don't spend days imagining everything that could go wrong. You can't solve tomorrow's problems with today's energy. Just focus on what you can do today. Finally, return your attention to your surroundings whenever your mind starts to wander. Notice your breathing, the feeling of your feet on the ground, or the sounds around you. Flowing forward means dealing with exactly what's happening right now without bringing up old memories or worrying about future fantasies. Number 5. Welcome every guest. Sufism teaches that the human soul has a natural rhythm, just like breathing. The Sufis called this rhythm qabd and bast. Qabd refers to difficult periods marked by sadness, anxiety, loss or uncertainty. Bast refers to times of joy, peace and ease. Both are parts of life and neither lasts forever. Rumi believed that suffering comes from when we try to hold on to happy moments and push away painful ones. But just as we can't inhale or exhale forever, we can't remain in one emotional state all the time. To explain this, Rumi wrote the famous poem The Guest House. He compares the human mind to a house where different visitors arrive each day. Some guests bring happiness, while others bring grief, anger, or disappointment. But instead of rejecting the difficult emotions, Rumi encourages us to welcome them, believing that each one has something to teach us. This idea became deeply personal when Shams suddenly disappeared. Rumi was heartbroken and searched for him across Damascus. Instead of resisting his grief, he accepted it and allowed himself to experience it fully. Over time, that period of loss became the source of his deeper spiritual understanding and inspired many of his later poems. Today, when we feel anxious, lonely, or sad, our first instinct is often to distract ourselves by doom scrolling, staying busy, or pretending everything is fine. But constantly avoiding difficult emotions only keeps them with us longer and often makes them worse. Instead, acknowledge how you feel without immediately trying to change it. If today's been difficult, accept that this is simply one part of life's natural rhythm. Like every other emotion, it will pass. And the same applies to happy moments too. Revel in your success, enjoy celebrations, and relax in peace while they last. But don't expect them to stick around forever. Appreciating them without trying to hold on to them makes them even more meaningful. Finally, ask what each experience can teach you. Disappointment may reveal unrealistic expectations, grief can remind you what truly matters, and failure can teach you valuable lessons. According to Rumi, every experience has a purpose if we're willing to learn from it. Number 6. Act with devotion. In Sufism, there's a fundamental battle between two ways of making decisions. Aql, which is the intellect, and ishq, which means devotion. The intellect is your logical, calculating mind, and its entire job is to keep you safe. It divides the world into safe or unsafe, profitable or unprofitable. If life is a rushing river, the intellect is the person standing on the bank with a clipboard, calculating the exact speed of the current and listing all the reasons why jumping in is a massive risk and why you should not do it. Ishq, on the other hand, is a cosmic unifying devotion. It doesn't calculate risk or demand a guarantee of success before it acts. It's the force that makes you drop the clipboard and just dive into the water. Rumi believed that reason has its limits. While logic undoubtedly helps us understand the world, it can't fully explain love, faith, or deep human connection. As he wrote, reason is powerless in the expression of love. To him, love was something to be experienced, not simply analysed. And this idea is reflected in another of his famous teachings, where he said, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you've built against it." Here, Rumi isn't talking about romantic love. He's referring to ishq, the deep sense of love and devotion that connects us with life, other people, and the divine. You don't need to force yourself to find ishq. It's already within you. Your only job is to dismantle the walls, the fears, and the logical barriers your intellect has built to block it out. So think about stepping onto a dance floor. If you're trying to lead a dance, like, say, the tango, purely from the intellect, you are going to fail. If your brain is constantly calculating the exact angle of your foot, counting every single microbeat, and agonizing over the fear of stepping on your partner's toes, you become incredibly stiff. You aren't actually dancing. You're just doing maths with your body. And as a result, your movement is completely blocked. To let the dance flow, you have to drop the mental calculation and lead purely from feeling, driven by a devotion to the music and the shared movement itself. You have to risk making a mistake to actually experience the rhythm. We analyse every decision, overthink career moves, and even relationships just to avoid getting hurt. We want a guarantee from the universe before we commit to anything. Rumi's message is not to reject logic. Instead, he believed that logic should support your decisions, not control them. Let your values, purpose, and genuine interests decide the direction you want to take, then use reason to help you move forward. One way to practice this is by accepting that life rarely offers guarantees. If you keep waiting for the perfect time to start a project, change careers, or begin a relationship, you might well never act. Sometimes you have to move forward even when you don't have all the answers. Also, stop judging every activity by what you're going to get from it. Read because you're interested. Learn because you're curious. Spend time with people because you enjoy being with them. Let devotion give your life direction, and let reason help you navigate the path. Number 7. Get into the flow state. Everything we've talked about leads to one final idea. In Sufism, this peak state is called tawhid, which means absolute oneness. This is exactly what we in the modern world would call being in the zone. During your daily life, there's a clear separation between you and the things you're doing. You are the person working, and the project is the thing being worked on. Because there's a gap between you and the action, there's also room for your ego to step in. You start overthinking and worrying about the final result. But when you get into the zone, that boundary between the doer and the doing disappears. We become fully absorbed in the task and become one with the action itself. One day, while walking through the market, Rumi heard the rhythmic sound of goldsmiths striking metal. He became so completely absorbed in the rhythm that he raised his arms and started to spin in the middle of the market, moving perfectly with the rhythm of the hammering. While we'll never know if this was the first rave, according to Sufi tradition, this experience inspired the practice of the whirling dervishes. The entire goal of the spinning is to reach a state where the dancer completely disappears and only the dance remains. Most of us have experienced this state at some point while writing, playing music, painting, or playing a sport. During those moments, you stop thinking about yourself. Your attention is fully on the activity, and everything seems to flow naturally. To experience this state more often, give your full attention to the task in front of you. If you're working on a project, focus on doing the work well instead of worrying about the results or what other people will think. The more present you are, the quieter your mind becomes, making it easier to work with focus and enjoy the natural flow of life. And that's our video. I've been Dan, you've been awesome, and if you enjoyed what you saw or found it helpful in any way at all, why not check out our full Philosophies for Life playlist? And of course, for more videos to help you find success and happiness using beautiful philosophical wisdom, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.